Mad Max Fury Road floored audiences everywhere last year when it was released in May, including myself. It was my favorite movie of 2015. And while the story was nothing spectacular, the relationships between the characters, along with the natural way everything is explained without the need of exposition, was amazing and unforgettable. Regardless of your opinion of the movie, nearly everyone can agree that the action was absolutely jaw-dropping. So let's take a deeper look at why the action of Mad Max Fury Road is brilliant. Before we start analyzing, we have to start by figuring out what type of action Fury Road falls under. Action can really fall under two categories: stylized action and die-hard action. So let's take this one by one. Stylized action is built around spectacle and ridiculousness, rather than being scared for the hero's life. Think of your Matthew Vaughn movies like Kick-Ass and Kingsman. Action movies that are not realistic, but is so enjoyable because of how ridiculous and over the top it is. Even the Fast and the Furious franchise would be qualified as stylized because the action is all built around moments of spectacle. So now let's take a look at the second type of action, die-hard action, which the term is derived from the movie of the same name. This action is designed to be much more tough and brutal, and the action is enjoyed more for the danger and realistic tone than the action itself. So let's look at Die Hard. One of the most commonly praised things in Die Hard is that John McClane is just one person. He is constantly getting hurt and beaten senseless, and that's why it is so enjoyable, because when he finally overcomes the odds, it feels like an actual ordeal, that the hero is actually human, not just an invincible superhero. So, how does this all relate to Mad Max? Well, let's take a look at two action scenes from the movie: the Furiosa and Max fistfight, and the canyon chase. The fistfight Max and Furiosa have right after the sandstorm is easily seen as a die-hard action scene. Both characters feel equally matched and are both at a disadvantage. Max is being tied to Nux, and Furiosa is missing her amputated arm. Every single punch and whack makes a satisfying yet painful sound effect every time it happens. And if we are rooting for Max like the movie wants us to, he has lost every single action sequence up until this point, so when he wins, it feels all the more satisfying. This is a perfect example of die-hard action. Tough, brutal, intense, and realistic. Now let's take a look at the canyon chase that takes place only 10 minutes later. The scene starts off with the Rock Riders jumping over the war rig, dropping grenades onto it to create a fire. Furiosa pushes the plow down, and sand flies over the entire war rig in a spectacular fashion. This leads to Max and Furiosa shooting Rock Riders, and Max fighting between Furiosa's leg while she shoots Rock Riders out of the sky. And the chase ends with the Rock Riders decoupling the gas pod, leading to a gigantic explosion that nearly kills Immortan Joe. So, what would this description sound like? If you said stylized action, you would be correct. The sequence is built around moments like the plow putting out the fire, Furiosa shooting bikers out of the sky, and the gas pod explosion. We do not really fear for our characters' survival as much because they seem to have everything under control. So this is a great example of stylized action. So why is this so great? Well, movies rarely try to mix these two types of actions together. Both types appeal to different people, and the movies are marketed as one or the other nowadays. And Mad Max perfectly mixes these two genres together. And nowhere is this more evident than the final chase of the movie. The final chase that takes place at the last 15 minutes of the film is easily one of the greatest action sequences of modern action movies. And if we analyze it, you really start to see why. If you want spectacle, you're going to find it all throughout this final chase. Listing every single moment of amazement would be a long list, so let's take a look at some of the best. A truck being dragged sideways next to the war rig. A gigantic tanker explosion. People being grabbed with a car with a pole vault on top of them, one of which almost drags Max's head against the ground. A fist fight with a flaming guitar, and of course, how can I forget, Furiosa attaching an anchor to Immortan Joe's jaw and ripping it off. Every single one of these moments is pure spectacle. Moments that exist to make the audience go, "Holy crap, that was incredible!" But do you know what makes this action sequence more memorable to me? The danger present throughout the entire scene. Just look, some of the mothers in the tribe died during the car chase, whether it is just being hit by a car or just thrown off. And considering two of them die before the action really picks up, it sets an immediate danger, and the audience understands that this chase matters. It has stakes, and no character, regardless of their importance, is safe. Just look at what happens to Max and Furiosa. Max nearly falls off the back of the war rig, gets blown up by a polecat, he gets shot in the head with an arrow, nearly gets sawed in half, and that's just the first half of the scene. This leads to Max falling off the war rig and barely being caught by Furiosa, leading to one of the best moments of the entire scene. Slick comes in with the interceptor, he puts the car into its highest gear, and the camera zooms on Max. This is the only time in recent memory that I actually gasped in the theater in fear. And just at the last second, Furiosa screams, charges the rig left, and crushes Slit against the tanker. This is perfect. Everything, even the camera zoom, puts the audience on edge, and they are in fear until the one shot where Max is saved. This is a perfect example of making the stakes feel real and serious. If we look at the rest of the scene, Max proceeds to jump from an exploding tanker, almost has his head dragged against the ground, and nearly gets smashed between the diff wagon and the war rig. But that one moment of him nearly falling off is perfect. And he does get some pretty amazing moments, such as a fist fight with a flaming guitar. Now let's take a look at Furiosa. She nearly gets blown up, choked to death, chainsawed in half as well, and when she is holding on to Max, she gets stabbed in the side. Furiosa slowly becomes weaker and less intense as the scene goes on, becoming more pale and in pain. And what does she do right after she gets stabbed? She runs over a flamethrower car. This leads to the final conflict with Immortan Joe, where she bangs her head on the car, gets her ribs broken, and almost falls off the truck. And this leads perfectly to Immortan Joe's death, which was already mentioned. Are you starting to see the pattern here? For every single moment of spectacle and badassery, there is danger. And each time one of the heroes nearly dies, a moment of spectacle follows nearly immediately. The scene constantly puts you on edge, and that makes the amazing moments not only incredible for their ridiculousness, but much more satisfying because the heroes overcome the odds. This constant pattern of danger and redemption is throughout the entire scene. And how can I forget the ending, where Nux literally sacrifices himself to save the rest of the group. The stakes are real, but it's amazing to watch. This perfect mix of die-hard and stylized action is why Fury Road's action is brilliant, and also why Mad Max is one of the most amazing action movies created in recent memory. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.